Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 1 of Tour of Suisse 2022. Now, if you already tuned in today, this isn't a replay of Dauphiné stage 8. This is Tour of Suisse stage 1. Now, it's 175 kilometers, and they got a beautiful circuit here that's going to drop down to a lake and then climb back up with 2 climbs on it. You want to focus on the last climb because they call it under 3 kilometers at 8%. But realistically, this climb goes almost from about 8K to the finish line, because even after those first 3 kilometers of hard climbing when they come off the lake, it's still going to be a false flat to a slight bit of a rise all the way to the line with just maybe 2 or 3 sections that are going to stair step a little bit as they get to the line. It'll be big chainring for sure after the last climb, the last 4 or 5 kilometers, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Today is going to be a great stage of bike racing here at Tour of Suisse, and nothing's going to disappoint the fans sitting on the couch. Now, when the racing starts, it's 7 riders up the road. They got over a 2-minute gap with Casper Pedersen from DSM, Louis Askey from FDJ, Johan Jacobs from Movistar, Quinn Simmons from Trek Segafredo, the American rider, Jay Vine from Alpecin Phoenix, Chad Heiger from Human Powered Health, and Simon Witzholm. Simon Witzholm, he is from the Swiss national team here, and he's going to put on a display of work throughout this stage 1. Now, when we go back to the Peloton, it's Bike Exchange chasing, Team Ineos, and Quick Step are on the front periodically through the beginning of this first part of stage 1. Then with 54 kilometers to go, it's UAE Team Emirates, big favorite for the general classification, in my book anyways. Mark Hirschi, that's pulling over to the right of the road. His car right behind him, UAE Team Emirates. When I show you the picture, the mechanic's grabbing his bike off the inside of the roof. That might be a bit of a slow change there, but UAE Team Emirates have a bunch of riders on their team because they have Rui Costa, the Portuguese rider who's a 3-time winner here of Tour of Suisse and an ex-road world champion. So Rui Costa's bike is set just to the inside, but at the back so the mechanic can pull it out quickly. Now, when you look again at the picture, it's the DS stepping out of the car, and let me show you his hands. Both hands have water bottles. He's going around the front of the car. The mechanic's going around the back of the car with the bike. The DS only forgot one thing. He went to put the water bottles into the old bike of Mark Hirschi as Mark Hirschi's going to the back of the car to grab his bike. Now, let me point something out as the mechanic's giving him a good push, because it's only a couple seconds in. The UAE Team Emirates car is right back there as he's sitting on the bumper, rushing him back up to the Peloton. Wait a minute, Chris, what are you saying? How can the car get there that fast? We got to back the film up. Guys, we got to back the film up all the way to the Dauphiné, right? We got to go all the way back to the individual time trial of the Dauphiné. You're like, Chris, what are you talking about? How can we back the film up that far? Well, we have to, because at the individual time trial, there was Brandon McNulty, UAE Team Emirates. He had a bike problem. He stopped the mechanic. I was a knucklehead that day. I didn't see the mechanic go for the bike, but Brandon McNulty stopped the mechanic. The mechanic went back up to Brandon McNulty's bike, and the DS sat in the car doing nothing. Now, Brandon McNulty lost at least 40 seconds. So we fast forward. We come right back up here to 54 kilometers to go before that magical push from the mechanic to get Mark Hirschi back up on his bike and running. And when we back it all the way up, you see the director stepping out of the car, the mechanic stepping out the back, not waiting to find out and hear whether if Mark Hirschi wants a spare bike, he's going to grab it anyways. Now, this is called doing your due diligence here for UAE Team Emirates. Clearly, they saw that fiasco on Dauphiné, and now they have solved the problem, right? They do an incredibly fast bike change with only one little hiccup with the DS putting the water bottles in the wrong bike as Mark Hirschi's getting pushed off. I said there was a car, and the car made it right back up to him from UAE Team Emirates. Guess what? Not only did they do their diligence in terms of switching the bikes, but they did an amazing job. It's not the same car that's getting them back up to the back of the Peloton. It's their spare car. How do I know? I had to back up the film and look at the license plates on both cars, because I thought as I'm sitting there on the couch, there's no way the DS could have gotten back in the car, the mechanic load his broken bike back up to the roof, and then got get that fast up to Mark Hirschi. It's not. It's the second team car. When we're at these World Tour races, all the teams have 2 cars in the caravan. So UAE Team Emirates, when you're talking about going back to Dauphiné, where they're big-time knuckleheads back there, now they got this thing well oiled, and they're doing a fantastic job. And it's a good thing they are, because let me back up the film again before that magical push from the mechanic and the second team car started pulling Mark Hirschi. When we look at the Peloton, there's a split. There's 15, 20 guys off the back of the Peloton. Now Mark Hirschi with his second team cars got him back up into the caravan. He's flying past the organizer's car. As he's dodging into the corner there on the right, he's got to jump the island there to avoid crashing. He does fantastic when he comes back up. It's right there next to the green car, one of the official cars, going into a tight, very technical right turn. He makes it past the car, through the turn, onto the back of the group. But like I said, this isn't the Peloton. The Peloton has blown up here on stage 1. With 15 guys coming out the back of the group. Luckily for Mark Hirschi, he's got not just one teammate waiting for him, he's got 2 if you look in the picture, and that's a good thing, because up front in the Peloton, we're starting to see big-time attacks. Now, I got to point one thing out. The only reason why we got to see that magical bike exchange is because Mark Hirschi is Swiss, and guess what? We're watching the Tour of Swiss Stage 1, so the cameras were on him the whole time. But now as he's chasing back there from the second group of the Peloton up to the front, that last group of 15 anyways, up front, it's the legendary rider from Lotto Soudal, Philippe Gilbert, that's throwing in attack. He's got some company along because he's got Thomas Pidcock from Ineos. Ineos came into this Stage 1 Tour of Swiss with what looks like their Tour de France team. You got to ask yourself when this race started, is Adam Yates their leader? Is Daniel Martinez their leader? Or is Geraint Thomas their leader when we come here at Tour of Swiss? And who's going to be their leader at the Tour de France? I don't know. I can't tell you, but I know they brought all their ballers here. Tom Pidcock, like I said, he's going up the road with Philippe Gilbert. They got some company with Quick Step up there. The FDJ rider, Louis Asti, he got dropped from that front group of 7. Now there's 6 up front, and the Philippe Gilbert is catching the FDJ rider. Now the Peloton behind, they don't like this combination because there's way too much power up there with Tom Pidcock up there. Van Wilder from Quick Step and Philippe Gilbert, who knows what kind of form the ex-road world champion is on here on Stage 1 of Tour of Swiss. So that move is brought back. Now, with just about 35 kilometers to go, there's some chaos in the Peloton. These Swiss roads on this circuit, they are crazy. Basically, it's a coming down the coast with switchy, small, technical islands all over the place, chicanes, lefts, rights. It's dangerous. You're going underneath bridge, you're coming down on the coast, and then you're going back up to the finish line on another technical, dangerous road. So here, there is no rest for anyone to relax. The racing has been intense. I only turned it on about 65 kilometers to go because we didn't have anything else to watch before that because the cameras only started then. But now at 37 kilometers to go, when we're watching the group, everybody's on the radio. Bike Exchange is on the front. Certainly they're racing for Michael Matthews on a stage finish like today, Stage 1. And it's Quick Step on the radio with Tim de Klerk. The big man is back in action here on Stage 1 of Tour Swiss. But the chaos, the energy here on Stage 1 is high. Everybody's curb to curb fighting for their lives to stay at the front and not lose time here on Stage 1. The group of 6 up the road with about 25 kilometers to go. That's when we start seeing 2 of the riders drop out. It's Johan Jacobs from Movistar that drops out next, and then another rider to follow, Jay Vine from Alpecin Phoenix. He comes out. Now, guys, Jay Vine, just to reinforce how difficult today's stage has been, if you look at Jay Vine and you see his clothing, it is covered in salt. I mean, this kid is drenched with salt all up and down his body. You know this race has been going full gas throughout today's stage. 175K, like I told you, and right now, 150 kilometers of it, you can tell we're absolutely intense when you look at the jersey of Jay Vine from Alpecin Phoenix. Those 4 riders continue without the other 2 riders as they're getting dropped because Quinn Simmons is on a mission. The American rider is putting on a show. He's attacking left and right. And Simon Witzum from the Swiss national team, he is always tagging along with every attack Quinn Simmons puts in. They put in 2 attacks in a row, and Quinn Simmons takes the KOM points at every option he gets here on Stage 1. He'll finish today with wearing the KOM COM jersey. With about 18 kilometers to go, though, Quinn Simmons will sit up and Simone will take off. Then behind the two riders that was dropped back there, Casper Peterson and Chad Hager from Human Powered Health, they go past Quinn Simmons and they bridge back up to the Swiss rider. Now there's three riders with 15 kilometers to go as they're dropping down the descent to go into the lake. There's a crazy chicane here. It's narrow, technical, and dangerous. Behind in the peloton, guess what? UAE Team Emirates have more bad luck back there because it's the three-time winner here of Tour of Suisse, Rui Costa, the Portuguese rider. He gets a flat, same thing. The team car pulls over and the mechanic pulls his bike out from the center of the roof there. That'll cost Rui Costa a lot of time. And unlike the flat that Mark Hirschi had, the peloton is nowhere near intact, so cars are nowhere to help the ex-road world champion get himself back up to the peloton here of GC favorites. His chance here of winning Tour of Suisse on the general classification are over with that flat tire change back there from UAE Team Emirates. Now, they are fast. I'm not blaming them. They're as fast as they can do. All I'm saying is that Rui Costa, he flatted at the most inopportune moment that you possibly could here at Tour of Suisse Stage 1. It would have been better to flat on the last climb going up to the finish than it would be coming down a descent into the lake here at Tour of Suisse. Now up front, I told you the chicane for the riders up front left, three of them, they're bombing down. They come out on the coast, and it's Casper Pedersen that's having a hard time holding the wheel of the two riders in front of him as he just barely makes it out of the right turn, almost clipping the island in the center on the left side of his bike. He makes it through there, accelerates back up. Chad Hager will get dropped as they're going along the coast right here with just under 8 kilometers to go. Now the peloton behind. Remember, all those technical difficulties of the road furniture that we just watched the break go through, the peloton's got to do it too, right? So when they get down to the coast road, when they come out of that final right-hand turn, the peloton's blown up in pieces. Casper Petersen, DSM, he's in the front group. Let me remind you, on the front of the peloton now pulling his DSM. And then the second group of peloton chasing the front half is none other than our Ensman for DSM. So they got bodies spread out throughout this coast road. And our Ensman, the young rider who's been riding fantastic here in 2022, he's coming off the back and doing everything he can to close the gap here on stage 1. Now, as they start the right turn with 8.5 kilometers to go, the field is somewhat more or less back intact, if you want to call it, because I know nobody's legs are feeling good, because if you go all the way back to 20 kilometers to go, it was Peter Sagan who got dropped. My tears dropping out of my eyes for Peter Sagan because I wanted to see nothing other than Peter Sagan have a magical Tour of Suisse here so he can battle later at the Tour de France with all the great giants and legends of the current sport right now for 2022. Peter Sagan, though, let me remind you, this is only the first stage, and he's been out resting, training at Utah at altitude. So sometimes when you first come back to these bike races, that first one's really vicious on the legs and the muscles. Hopefully for Peter Sagan and for me sitting at home, because I'm really looking forward to seeing that battle between all the big one-day favorites when the Tour de France starts. But it's not going to happen today with Peter Sagan done and dropped here on stage 1. Now we get back into the racing because it's intense when we start this final climb with 8 kilometers to go. There's still 2 riders up the road, right? Casper Petersen starting to come off of Simon's wheel as the Swiss rider's digging as hard as he can, but he's only got about a 10-second gap on the peloton behind, being led by all the big-time favorites. Quick Step's at the front. Ineos is at the front. It is a mob of riders fighting for position to start this last climb. Then the attacks start right away. EF Education. Nielsen Powers throws in attack. Nielsen, my boy, I just wish you would wait just a little bit longer. Stay calmer, man. He throws in big attacks, but he's right at that cusp of his career where if he starts to follow these big moves, we'll see him getting top 5, top 10 positions instead of trying to throw in these early attacks. Instead, he's throwing in a big attack. It's getting covered right away from the favorites behind because everybody's got teammates back there. Next to throw an attack will be Alessandro Covi from UAE Team Emirates. He throws in a big dig. It's brought back again. Guys, there's multiple attacks. I can't name them all going up this last climb. There's so many. And then finally, we start seeing Fogelsang that throws in attack, and it's Mark Hirschi, UAE Team Emirates, that's locked onto his wheel. Let me remind you guys again about that flat that Mark Hirschi had at 54 kilometers to go. Normally, that would be a mundane bike change. Instead, luckily for Mark Hirschi, that change was absolutely orchestrated to beautiful perfection, and that got him back on to save his legs because now he's going up the road with Fogelsang. Remember, Jakob Fogelsang, he is a great rider. Liège, best on Liège rider, been top top 10 in Grand Tours, and Mark Hirschi himself has got his own resume of legendary results. These two riders are going up the road, and behind they're getting chased by all the favorites. Now the next, as they get brought back, now the next attack to go is going to be none other than Vlasov, the big GC favorite here, along with Remco Evenepoel Quick-Step. These two riders, they're under 2K to go, and they're throwing in big digs. We look back at the Peloton, the guy chasing is Garrett Thomas. Garrett Thomas from Ineos and Adam Yates are the only two Ineos riders left here in the front group, because Danny Martinez got dropped as they were coming up this climb with about 4 kilometers to go. Now with Garrett Thomas on the front, he's pulling hard, doing everything he can, but he doesn't have enough to bring back Remco Evenepoel, because Vlasov is with them. And remember, Remco Evenepoel can close the finishing stages off like we've seen him do, like no other rider can. We've seen him pull from 4 kilometers all the way to the finish, and now today he's got help. Back there, Ineos, Adam Yates gets on the front. He's finally able to close it just as he is. From behind, it's Quick-Step Van Wilder with about 400 meters to go that comes flying from the back. He looks over his shoulder and see if his team leader, Remco Evenepoel, can get on his wheel. Doesn't look like Remco's got anything left, but Van Wilder's going deep. With 200 meters to go, it's Van Wilder from Quick-Step. He's still on the front, leading this group that's now down to about 15 riders, because many guys got dropped here on stage 1. Now as they come around the corner, we see the back end of the Peloton, so I can't tell you what's happening until we come back up to the front. It's a right bend to the finish with 50 meters to go. They're 4-5 wide on the front of the Peloton, and it's a Bahrain Victorious that wins today's stage. Now, of course, at this point in time, I know who won today's stage, but just like the commentators watching the race, have you ever heard of Stephen Williams? I haven't. I honestly haven't. So I had no idea when I was watching it live that it was Stephen Williams from Bahrain Victorious that won here on today's stage. Max Schachmann was second, and Andreas Krohn from Lotto Soudal was third to round out a podium here on stage 1. But for Stephen Williams, you got to just be happy for the kid, because this has got to be his coming out party. Now I had to look at his resume to see what else he had. He had some smaller wins throughout his career, but this is a big World Tour victory at Tour of Suisse. I won here one stage back in my day too, and I still remember it as I'm sitting here on the podium like it was yesterday, and I'm sure Stephen Williams will remember his victory here on stage 1. And along with that victory comes race leader's yellow jersey here at Tour of Suisse. So congratulations, Williams. That was a fantastic sprint. You played it calm as a bomb, stayed at the back, made all the favorites here fighting for general classification to do the work for you, and then came out of nowhere and won your first big World Tour victory here for Bahrain Victorious. Again, congratulations. Big praises here from the Butterfly Effect. I enjoyed today's stage immensely. It was fantastic. Now, in terms of the favorites, up front, Sepp Kuss still made it up there. Lots of favorites in that front group. I told you Ineos was there with Garrett Thomas. And of course, Adam Yates is still up on GC. Remco Evenepoel did a marvelous job there at the front with Vlasov, another GC favorite, to finish in this front group. Behind, though, there's GC guys all over the place. Dropped. Rowan Dennis lost massive time on today's stage. And along with Rowan Dennis, Rigoberto Urán, who, let me remind you, was second here to none other than Ineos' Richard Carapaz, who did the Giro, so he didn't start today. So when you look at all the favorites on the general classification, about 50% of them lost massive time on today's stage. So you guys got to go back and look at the results, because there's too many for me to remember. But I do remember Stephen Williams' name now that he won stage 1 of Tour of Suisse. Again, fantastic job, Williams. I enjoyed it immensely, coming out of the blue from nowhere to take it from all the big GC favorites. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. The Tour of Suisse will not disappoint if you're here on the Butterfly Effect. And UAE Team Emirates, man, did you guys man up from that individual time trial fiasco with Brandon McNulty during the Dauphiné, and now here you are back saving the race for Mark Hirschi. Who would have thought a bike change could have been that smooth, that beautiful, and that well orchestrated, that you needed both the DS, both the mechanic working at the same time, and the second car back there to get Mark Hirschi on in order to keep his GC hopes here alive. Now, the great stage, loved it all the way. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect.